What is up, everybody? Welcome to another exciting episode of the Team Lead Talks podcast. I'm your host out of Alexandria, Virginia, Andrew Becker. On today's show, we have a partner of Wild Oak Capital and Denver Broncos fan. Good luck this weekend, Mr. Ben Nelson. What's up, dude?
How's it going?
Good, man. We were just talking about your quarterback issues, so I hoping and praying that your backup can pull a Nick Foles on you.
Yeah, for clarity, this is the 21st of January. We still have the hopes and dreams, right? Like we've got a little bit of time here, so
Yep.
it's all sunshine and roses.
Cool,
No,
dude.
I mean, like we said, it's something I was born into, whether I like it or not. We're Broncos fans. Same thing for Rockies. It's been a little rough go as a Rockies fan, but we're still here.
Ever since what was it? What era did you guys? We don't need to talk about the Rockies. You had a good run. Didn't you guys win the
Mid
World
2000s?
Series?
We did go to the World Series, and believe it or not, I got to go to that series of games. But
Nice.
yeah, it
Very
did not
cool.
end well for us.
Okay, yeah. So we'll move on from that PTSD and talk about
There you
Wild
go.
Oak. Let's hear who Ben Nelson is for those of you listening right now that might not already know. Give us a high level overview, like who you are, how you got into what you do now, and how you help people.
Sure. I mean, the bigger thing is that a lot of people understand that we're in real estate, right? But I have a huge background in producing action sports. So for 20 plus years, I produced action sports in a lot of different fronts. I was in New York and we did a bunch of stuff around the world. A lot of Red Bull was like a main client. So we got to do some pretty fun stuff. Like we're
Nice.
jumping trucks and jumping cars and, flying airplanes, racing airplanes. There's a lot of really fun things we got to do. But it got to a place where I realized that trajectory was not serving me in the way that I wanted to, right? Like I had two little boys, I was gone all the time, like that trading time for money scale, that curve was not going the way I wanted it to. I wanted it to start doing this and it was still doing this. And at the same time, I'm really close with my brothers, but my youngest brother, Eric, and I, especially kind of like-minded when it comes to real estate and to finances. We started talking. He's a really accomplished engineer and it was a similar story for him. We just looking around like, hey, we're also entrepreneurs. We don't have like a backup 401k plan that our employer has been dumping into for us in a while, right? Like we have to have a really strong idea of where we want to go. So we started looking around. Eric had a couple of single family and a couple other like rentals already in his portfolio. And we started looking around at what would make the most sense for us. And so we found a couple of quads in Lubbock, Texas is how we started, along with an investor of ours who just did a joint partnership. We learned a bunch, just like everybody who takes that leap, then the first step. And I do think there is a lot of information around, you can learn a lot from books, you learn a lot from podcasts, you can bring a lot of information from your former employer relationship, but there's only so much that you can do until you just do it, right? And so we learned a bunch, ended up making a little bit of money. I wouldn't say we got rich off of it, but we were able to come out and turn a little profit and learned a bunch and also realized, hey, if we want to do this for real and do what we think we can do, it's time to scale, right? So that's when we got into our first real larger investment, Wild Oak Capital. We formed Wild Oak Capital along with two other partners. My brother Eric started Wild Oak because he's the original founder, right. And then three of us kind of all came together at the same time and created our own little Wild Oak Voltron. Nice. John has since moved on, and we've added Bonnie as an asset manager. So we've kind of ramped up. We're about $100 million under management, right about 1,000 doors. So we're big enough to actually be able to sit at the table and have some conversations, but also scrappy enough where we really like that sweet spot of how we're managing and how we're moving. So
cool. And how long have you been doing this Wild Oak Capital? What was the time frame we're looking at here?
Yeah, so a lot of the conversations really also happened starting around like COVID, right? So right coming out of COVID, our first team meeting, we were in Mexico City, but flying with masks and all of those things is like right when it was starting to come back. And we saw an opportunity. Obviously, just like everybody else, we realized that money was cheap and the ability to get in, and we saw a lot of opportunity and learned a lot of lessons there too. Like some of the first ones that we picked up, we're still learning about, but we've seen a lot come and go in this short period of time, and we're pretty excited about it.
Cool, man. So walk us through like the mission and the vision of Wild Oak. Are you acquiring these for your own portfolio, or do you also manage these assets for others? Like walk us through that business model.
Yeah. So we syndicate real estate. So for listeners, we basically find a property where we find a deal, and we do all the due diligence, we do all the back end work, we find all the financing, but then essentially we take it to investors, right? And we say, hey, there's a chunk of ownership space here. We really like the syndication model because it is a true ownership model and not like a REIT or something else where everybody gets to participate in the taxes.
Yeah.
And the upside there. But what we do is try to find a really good deal, bring some investors into that, and we believe that we're doing a lot of good in that space for that. So we try to find places. We're active in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, really sort of like that C plus to B plus zone of workforce housing, which we think is completely underserved in its own right. But we get to go in, bring a little bit of fresh capital, likely fix some things that haven't been fixed in a while, right? And like do a couple cool projects on the property, really elevate the way these folks live. And then in the due course and time, we make a little bit of money for the investors is really the top line. So we feel like we pick our projects based on where we can do the most good for everybody.
Okay.
And go from there.
Cool, man. And I think you alluded to this, and I might not have picked up on it, but what kind of properties are you finding? Are these all residential, commercial? Can you tell us the spread there?
Yeah, mostly multifamily, right? So multifamily, like C plus to B plus. What we're looking for, like our sweet spot is really that sort of, 70, 80, 90 to like 180, somewhere in there. And we like that. And not to say that we haven't done things on this lower end of that, and not to say that things we're under contract on a larger property, but those are sort of, they kind of fall in our lap where they really make sense. We like that middle zone because we think we can do the most amount of good, and because we can also provide a decent return, and we're not just fighting against, an overbidding, going up against family offices and things like that. I think, anybody that's been in this space for the last 5 to 6 years or longer has seen these cycles of like, hey man, ever just running up the cost because money was so cheap, you could afford to overpay. And that's no longer the case. And so this evening of the playing field is really starting to come into factor here.
Very awesome, man. So walk us through like the mechanics of what you guys do to identify properties, and then what you do due diligence wise, and then ultimately, dude, on the back end, like how do you become a person on the list of potential investors where you bring these opportunities in front of?
Sure. So we do a lot of work. I mean, it's a relationship game, right? Like there are a lot of ways for you to go out and you can get on lists, and there's tons of people out there that say, "No, we'll send you these giant lists." I can say that I've never found a deal that way. Like we've done some calling, we have done some back end things where we personally have reached out to some owners and said, "Hey, we'd like to make you a deal on your property."
Right.
But 99% of the time, it's been with brokers or our property management relationships, and that's really something that's come with time. And we really value that, and I think that's the value we want to espouse is like, how do we take care of our people so that they take care of us? We have some excellent property management partners, and that's really why we choose to stay in those locations also and grow and expand, is because we know we're as close to vertically integrated as I think we want to be at this point, right? Like individual companies, but we work hand in hand. There's emails going back and forth. They'll come to us and say, "Hey, we have owners that are looking to maybe move on from a property. Would you guys like a first look?" So we do a lot of that. And not to say, we still have a lot of strong broker relationships. We try to keep those strong, really find out who's doing right in that space as well. And I think that they're getting to know us and say, "Hey, this is what we can do." Fortunately, we close, right? And I think, like, not to be braggadocious about it, but there's a lot of tire kickers and a lot of people who'll drag out the process. So we like to say, "Hey, we have the ability to close." We're fortunate in the sense that we have some investors that trust us as well, and we think we can move pretty quickly. And yeah, if you're interested in finding out, the one thing I say is, please look at who we are. Like we want to invest with people that we love, right? And we want people that invest with us to love us as well. So the metrics are there, like all those things. But I would say the horror stories that I've heard and even had to deal with personally is like when interests are not aligned, it's just say, "Hey, I really like that return profile on the pro forma." No matter what you do, and I can say this is something I've learned coming from event production, no matter what we do, no matter what we say and we put on paper, life is going to happen, right? Something's going to go wrong. The plan will always be the plan, and pick people who have the ability to adjust when the plan changes and to kind of be fluid with that. So I would say people that you align with, you understand, like, "Hey, let's have a conversation. Something's going to change. Something's going to go off the rails. Here's our plan to make it as good or better than it was." That's the kind of investor we want to work with, and somebody we'd love to listen. So
Ben,
you can reach out.
In real estate, like it doesn't always just go as planned every single time. Like stuff happens. That's news to me, man.
Yeah, no, that's brand new. But I would say, especially investors that come into this, there's a lot of folks, and I think real estate is interesting. I think that this asset class is still so underserviced as far as knowledge and the volume of investors that probably could do really well in this space. But education is important, and I do think that there's just not enough that's talked about. It's always sunshine and roses. It's always like pro formas and what's the super high IRR and like this 2x or more equity multiples that people are putting out there. And some people are really accomplishing that, but I think people, if they start to really look at like the data versus what was put out versus coming back, and I tend to be a realist, right? Like we say, "Hey, these are our projections." We try to I know everybody says this, but we try to underwrite pretty conservatively, but we're also really open and honest about like, hey, things are going great. Hey, things are not going so great. Like, if we have time, I can tell you a story about a property we had in San Antonio, and that entire market, the bottom dropped out for a little while, like for a lot of reasons. There's, ICE and like, there's a lot of things with this
Dude, share
administration.
that. I would love to hear like a real world.
Yeah. So we have a property in San Antonio, and it was, it was one of our first ones. It's definitely been a challenge as far as like the overall is concerned. Like we've learned a bunch there. It's, a 32 unit, so it's right on that cusp of like how you manage it and all of those things. So we've gotten really good at those types of things. But we were going through a period of time where we saw an exodus across the board. So like in San Antonio, it went from, mid to upper 80s in occupancy to sub 70 almost overnight. There's a lot of reasons for that too, because I mean, whether or not you agree with it, that sort of action by ICE, especially in the Latin communities, really took a toll on operators. And because whether or not you're here legally speaking, like it really didn't matter that much. So nobody was moving. People that wanted to get out or had an opportunity to leave or move to somewhere else and do those things. So we saw this kind of just like mass excess, like I said. And there's not really, especially in that swath, if the entire swath in the entire metro goes away, there's nobody to fill those spaces, right? So we had to get a little bit creative and make some adjustments. Fortunately, again, we have an awesome property management team down there, but that's something we have to reach out to our investors and be like, hey, this is what's going on. Like, you can't sugarcoat it. I think there's a lot. I personally get a lot of those updates from investments that I'm in.
Mhm.
And a lot of times it's like, everything's going great. Everything's fine. Like, look over here. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
would far rather be on a list, be like, hey, these are the challenges that we're seeing. Here's our plan to fix it. Here's what we see in the market. This not just us. Like we recognize it's probably going to be a lean couple of months.
Right.
Here's our go-to plan, and here's how we want to fix it. So that's kind of one of the examples I like to bring up of like, not always is it going to go right. Not always is it going to go to plan. And even if we've done all the things right, there's something out there like
Yeah.
an ICE or something like that can change what we're doing entirely. And do you have folks that you're confident in to make those decisions at the right time?
Yeah, dude, what you just also listed out was the majority of those things you were not able to control any of that. That is just like the world happening around with that particular property in San Antonio. But I agree, like you have to have the right like-minded people who know there are going to be ups and downs. So you partner with those as best you can up front so, you don't have people freaking out here.
Yeah. No, and as I said, it does come from the event industry because what we do, and especially at scale, like you have to be ready for plan B, plan C, plan D,
Yeah.
especially if you're out in the middle of nowhere, right? You
Yeah.
have to have those tools and those people, and like it's not just tools, it's people, right? Like picking the right people with the right mindset that can be calm in stressful situations and make some solid decisions and ask the right questions as well. That's what we really, and again, why we love our PMs, why we love the team that we've put together.
Very cool. Dude, if someone wants to work with you, is there like a minimum criteria set? Do they have to like put in an investment? Like how does that work if someone out there's listening is like, I want to reach out to Ben but I want to make sure I'm a good fit. Culturally, number one, it sounds like that's super important and I agree with that wholeheartedly. But like is there any like I have to be worth a certain amount? Like can you walk me through the profile?
No, so we try to keep our investments available for a lot of folks as well. There are minimums depending on the deal. So usually it's a 50 to 75. We do try to hold a couple of slots on the lower end depending on the deal too, right? So if it's a 506B deal, which means a non-accredited investor but sophisticated investors, we get to take a certain number of those. We're working on a deal now. It's a 506C, so it's just accredited investors. And there's some nuances to those two things. And I think if you're listening and you don't know what those are, I'd be happy to have a conversation. I don't want to necessarily turn people away and say, hey, don't invest with us.
Yeah.
But I will be clear. Like we ask a lot of questions of you too. Like there's a lot of these investment pieces there. How can I get your money through the door? How can we do another deal? And we don't want that. Like we aspire to have a decent amount of deals. We're not trying to build a $1 billion company and just like smash cash through the door. We really want to love the people we work with. And so we ask a lot of the same questions. Why do you want to get into the space? What education do you have? How can we help you learn? My brother runs an entire coaching back end, but like he really is dedicated. His mission is around helping people grow in knowledge in this space. So yeah, I would say reach out to us. It's really simple. Just Ben at Wild Oak Capital. I'm also super active on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn there as well, which I think is how you and I connected originally.
Yeah.
So we would love to have conversations. And honestly, I say this all the time too. It may not even be that, hey, if we don't fit, that's fine, but I'll bet you I know somebody else that you probably do fit with. And we're happy to make those introductions, those recommendations, because our thesis is that there's more than enough here for everybody. Like this scarcity mindset, elbows out, just like it doesn't work for us. If we're not an immediate fit, or our deals don't work, or we don't have a deal that fits you right now, we're happy to make some introductions to some other folks as well.
Very cool, dude. And you mentioned your email. Do you guys have a website that they can check out as well?
Yep. wildoakcapital.com.
Okay, cool. And we'll include all this information for those interested in reaching out to Ben and his team in the description, or the episode description. Ben, this is awesome, dude. Like, even though you're a Broncos fan, I'm a Commanders fan. Like, we don't mesh NFL wise or sport fan wise, but I always love connecting with people too. And I think what you said earlier about, like, even if it doesn't work out, you value being able to connect people to the right people, regardless if it's moving forward with you or anyone else. And I absolutely love that you said that. I try to take that same kind of mantra in my life these days as we're meeting all these awesome new people, saying, hey man, I have someone that you need to talk to, Ben. Like, you guys gotta hook up and figure out if you can make something happen. So
100%.
Really cool, awesome stuff. Did you have anything else you wanted to share?
No, I just said I can say with honesty, I can't remember a single time I've been upset that I introduced people. Like it always works out for the better.
Very cool, dude. So before we go, Ben, I always ask all my guests this, but is there a resource, a book, anything that you can share with anyone listening now to the episode that can better their life, their community, their business, that you're able to tell us?
Yes. There's a million books and there's a million podcasts, there's a million resources, but I think the one thing that I've distilled lately and trying to write my own book and how I'm going through that process is put people around you that agree with your mission. Not necessarily that you want to be a certain person, like, getting into the space and having these podcasts and like going on LinkedIn or whatever social media. It feels like you're always on stage. And that was the thing for me, is like, I don't want to be a salesperson. Like in events, we build these events to stand alone and we're proud of what we build. And I want to continue that. So the only thing I've been able to distill it down to is if you can be really clear about who you are and what your mission is, it becomes far easier to put people around you that support that mission that you want to work with.
Yeah.
If you go after an avatar, if you go after like my avatar, he's 35 and he has 2 kids and he has these things, like you're going to get a big pool to fish in, but not necessarily people that want to do the things that you want to do or live the way you want to live or support the same things you want to support. So if you can be clear about your mission and live as a part of a mission and not necessarily to a company, to a person, to anything else, it makes it a lot easier to have these conversations.
Very well said, man. And I think we talked about this on our pre-episode connection call, but it sounds like you just want to have fun with the people that are in your life, personally and professionally. Like, I'm at the 100%. Point where I just want to, anyone on the teams that I have, and sounds like you too, like I just want to be excited when Ben Nelson calls me and not be like, oh, I got to talk to Ben. So yep. That's a major thing, and I just realized that in the as I'm getting older here. So it's nice to have a shared opinion with you on that.
It matters, man. It really does.
It really, really does, man. Ben, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you being here, dude, and we're definitely going to keep in touch. I'll text you this weekend after the Broncos-Patriots game, see how you're doing.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, man. All right, take care, dude.
Thanks, Andrew.